With us now is CNN military analyst, retired General Wesley Clark, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander and senior fellow at UCLA's Burkle Center. Thank you, sir, for coming in. I want to get to the Black Sea grain deal. It is off. It has been canceled by Russia. Can you just explain the repercussions here? Because this is a worldwide repercussion. This doesn't just have to do with the region, correct?
That's right. This is worldwide. It drives up prices. It restricts the volume of grain that's out on the market. It particularly attacks the UN World Food Program, and it puts some countries in the global south in real jeopardy for real hunger crisis. They're all dependent on Russian and Ukrainian grain. Russian grain's been moving out, but as we saw, Ukrainian grain is a significant part of the world's supply. And so this is going to have a big impact.
Okay, so food prices, world food prices soaring, food shortages in places like Africa and the Middle East. Those are really big issues that this war has brought forward. I do want to ask you now about the 12-mile bridge that goes over the Kerch Strait. Hit by Ukraine, it links directly Russia to the Crimean Peninsula. Can you give me some sense of how crucial this is for Russia and its military?
Well, it is crucial in the sense of being able to have full flow of supplies to Russian forces that are defending against the Ukrainians, coming through Crimea and trying to prevent the Ukrainians from coming south from Zaporizhia. However, there are alternate routes of supply. The rail line's still open, and there are other ways of getting those supplies in from Rostov. So this is significant, and it is a big symbolic blow for Ukraine, but it's not decisive. It's not going to cut off all supplies to the Russian forces. It's just one more factor. But here's the thing, Sarah. The Ukrainians are building up their ability to strike deep. They are going to produce their own kind of ATACMS missile to strike into Crimea. Maybe they did this with drones, but the drones are getting more sophisticated and more capable. So the Ukrainians are not going to want to allow Russia to have a sanctuary from which it can strike Ukraine, and certainly not Crimea, which they consider part of Ukraine. No sanctuary there. So the Ukrainians are determined to strike deep. This is part of their counteroffensive, and they're not going to relent on this.
Let me ask you about striking deep. There are F-16s are going to be handed over to the Ukrainians, but first they have to train for them. Twofold question here. How long does the training take, and how soon do you see those F-16s making a difference potentially in this war?
Maybe 6 months at the earliest, probably 9 months. They probably won't be fully operational, but before March, April, May of next year. And here's the thing. We would never have launched a counteroffensive against this kind of a defense without air superiority. We've encouraged the Ukrainians to do so, and we've dragged our feet on providing them the F-16s and the other air superiority qualities they need. We don't have enough air defense to protect the ground forces on Ukraine when they're attacking, from attack helicopters and other things. It's just not our way of war. Our way of war is we have air superiority first. The Ukrainians don't have air superiority. They don't have the air defense with those ground columns that they need. So we've really handicapped their offensive. And the sooner we can get those F-16s there, the better. And I would say this, Sarah, in addition to the F-16s, the Ukrainians need the long-range ATACMS missile. Now, the French are supplying the long-range missiles. The Brits are supplying long-range missiles. They're not the same missile as ATACMS. ATACMS is a ballistic missile. It's guided. It's very effective, and it should be provided now that the Brits and French have broken ground on this. It's clear the Russians can't expect a sanctuary deep. So let's give the Ukrainians what they need to finish this fight more quickly.
Yeah, the Ukrainians, you're saying, are handicapped in the air, but they have been holding their own, so we'll see what happens going forward. Thank you so much, General Wesley Clark. Appreciate your analysis.
I want to talk more now about the Kerch Bridge. You can see some of the destruction that was caused by this Ukrainian attack on the bridge. And let me show you again where it is on the map. It is right here. It connects Crimea, which is, of course, part of Ukraine, but been occupied by Russia since 2014. It connects Crimea with Russia proper. Want to bring in retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. General, thank you so much for being with us. So the attack on the bridge here, how much of an operational setback is it for Russia?
Well, thank you, John. I don't believe it's that much of an operational setback. I mean, they took out the road, the bridge where vehicle traffic uses, but they didn't take out the rail, and they still have barges and ships and whatnot, so they can still get logistics. It's not near as significant as the attack that occurred on the Kerch Bridge back in October. I think that they'll probably be able to fix this within a few days, maybe a couple of weeks. But it's got a huge operational impact because it's demonstrating a deep strike capability that the Ukrainians have achieved through their incredible tenacity and innovation. They were able to launch these surface drones over 500 kilometers through uncharted water, through patrolled water by the Russians to attack a pinpoint target. And that's sending a very, very loud signal to the Russian Navy that, look, hey, every ship that's out there in the Black Sea is vulnerable to attack. And if they want to try to enforce some sort of an embargo on Ukrainian grain, every ship captain that's out there is going to have to worry about getting hit by one of these sea drones.
Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. You think the attack here on the Kerch Bridge could be something of a message to the Russian fleet, which is operating, frankly, with impunity all over the Black Sea and keeping other ships out, keeping the Ukrainians from doing very much in the area. So you think that's what's at play here?
I think that that's an element that should be considered. It's a deep strike capability that they're demonstrating. I mean, we recall what happened last April when the Ukrainians hit the Moskva, the devastating impact that had on sinking that battleship and the impact on the command and control. And I think that if they're going to try to enforce some kind of embargo, again, every single ship that's out there in the Black Sea is now a target. The Ukrainians are showing that they're capable of hitting those targets.
All right, one other development over the weekend, which is that President Biden has okayed the training of Ukrainian pilots on the F-16, the U.S.-made F-16 fighter jet, which is right here. How much of a difference do you think this could make, General?
John, I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact, frankly. It'd probably take at least 6 to 9 months to train these pilots. However, strategically and politically, it sends a very strong message, of course, that the United States and NATO continue to support the Ukrainians in this fight. But there's many, many problems that the Ukrainians are experiencing right now. One of them is air superiority. So obviously, if they can get F-16s into the fight, more aviation assets, we would never launch a counteroffensive like the Ukrainians have done without complete air superiority, and they don't have it. But they've got a tough fight. They got 200,000 Russians that have been dug in now for over a year with incredible tank traps and probably hundreds of thousands of tank mines out there, land mines that they've got to negotiate. They lack the equipment that we promised them. They don't have the personnel they need. They haven't pushed forward the logistics. And of course, there's the issue of battle fatigue. So I think it's very, very important that we continue to show our support to the Ukrainians with this F-16 support. And I would say this also, John, I think that the Biden administration needs to approve U.S. contractors on the ground in the Ukraine to help maintain these aircraft. Right now, I'm getting reports that perhaps 50% of the equipment we gave them is not operational because they can't maintain them.
Steve Anderson, General, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Appreciate it.